everyone, this is Kelly with Kellyscards.ca, and I'm here to show you an album that I'm going to do the tutorial for. I saw someone do something very similar online and I didn't quite like the tutorial as much because I didn't find there was enough room in the actual album for space for pictures and that. So what I've done is I've completely altered it. This was kind of my first sample, so right here I just have a ribbon closure to close the album. It's kind of like a little wallet style mini album, but just to go through it, this is the front. Opening up, there's a pocket here and a pocket here to put a tag, and then I've got this little part. I haven't embellished this yet, but this was really just my first sample. And then this opens up like this. We'll just zoom out a little here. And this part flips over like this, and then you'd have another pocket here. This would open up like this. And again, it all folds up. So this was originally kind of my first sample, my idea. And from there, I have decided to make it a little thicker. So this, you can see, is a lot more thicker up here than my sample. My sample is only 1/8 of an inch, where this is a full 1/4 of an inch wide. So it just gives you more room inside to layer papers and embellishments and flowers. So how did we get to this point? So to start out, you're going to need a scoring board. If you have the Martha Stewart scoring board, you'll be able to follow along with the lines with me. And the first thing you're going to do is you're going to be able to take any piece of 12 by 12 paper, and the first thing you're going to do is score it at 1/4. Now this 1/4 is going to be part of the pocket, as you will see when we start cutting it down. So just to zoom in so you can see the markings. So the little green line right before the 4, that's where I'm going to score, and then I'm going to score a 1/4 after that. So one little mark before the 4 and one little mark after, and same with the 8. One before and one after. And then at the very end, I am going to score right at the green mark before. So I believe that's 5/8. Now I'm going to spin this whole sheet, and I'm going to score right down the middle at 6, sorry. And that's one of the 2 pieces of 12 by 12 paper. And now the second sheet is exactly like the first, so we're going to do the 1/4 of an inch. We're going to do the little mark before 4, the little mark after 4, the little mark before 8, the little mark after 8, and then the 5/8 at the end. This time we're going to spin it, and we are going to score at the 2-inch mark and the 6-inch mark. Okay, so now all of our scoring has been done. So now we have these 2 pieces, and the only difference between them really is this one score mark at 2 inches. So now I'm going to show you how to cut it to be able to make all of this work. So for this first sheet, this is the one with only the score line at 6. What we're going to do is we're going to cut out from the outer score marks. So we're going to cut from this mark here all the way to this mark, not the inside marks, the outside marks, and we're going to go right up to that 6 score line. So we're just going to line it up here, and I'll show you this before I move along to the next cut. So yeah, as you can see, it's the outer marks that I have scored. And now we're going to cut that piece out. So we're going to set it up on that 6-inch mark, and we're going to just cut that piece out. Just like so. Now for this one, we actually do not need these outer marks that we scored. So that piece that we scored, the 1/4 inch, we're going to cut off, and the 5/8 of an inch we're going to actually cut off. And the reason why I still scored them, even though I knew I was cutting them off, is just to make sure that all the marks were consistent. Yeah, it was just easier to know where these other score marks are to keep that first 1/4 of an inch in there. Okay, so now this is what this first piece should look like now. And you can see that you have that one piece with the fold, then the other piece, and then the 2 score lines, the piece, 2 score lines, the piece, a score line, and then this piece. And this piece is now done. We're going to move on to this piece. Now this one is very similar, that we're going to cut on the outer score line, but with this one we're going to cut on the inner score line, and we're going to take that scored section out. So we're going to line this up here, and then I'm going to move it to the next score line. And I'm just going to use a pair of scissors to cut that piece out. Just like that. So now you can see it's just the score line that's out, and we're going to do it again over here. Just like that. And again, I'll use that score line to my advantage. And there we go. So we've cut that out. So now we have the full sheet, but just the score lines out. Now for the next section is we are going to take, this is where we scored at the 2 inches. We're going to take this piece off and this piece off. And when we do that, we're going to go right into the inner score line. We're going to take the whole section out. And I will show you that. Right up to that inside score line. So as you can see, right up to that score line, the inside. And then again, we're going to just take that piece out. Just like that. And we're going to do the exact same thing on the other side. Okay, so far this is what we have. We have the sheet missing this section, and the scored sections. And all we will have is this piece here without the score, as you can see there. It's just the inside piece. So now the only other thing we have to do is make our fold lines for our pocket. So this part here with this 1/4 inch, we're going to take it off of the long edge. So as you can see, these long edges, the outside portion score lines, we're going to take out. So I'm just going to line it up here again. Go right up to that 6-inch mark. And again, I'm just going to use my scissors for ease here. And this is where, on these pockets coming up, we're going to do diagonal cuts, and I'll explain why. I just like to taper those edges, because when we're going to fold this in, it will look nicer with the cut edges. So that's one side there. You can see how this edge is now missing and that edge is now sticking out. We're going to do the same thing on this side. Again, taking the long edge out of the picture, right up to the 6-inch score line. And just to save a step, this is where I just cut angled anyways, and cut like that. So now pretty much most of our cutting is done, and we're left with the 2 pieces, and this is where it gets fun. So we have this piece, lay this piece on the bottom. Now this piece here, this square here is going to lay across this section. So it's going to look like this, right? So again, this is flat. You've got your open space. This one that's an open flap like this piece is going to go straight down like this. And you're going to line this piece up right to the score line. So you see that inside score line, that's where that sheet is going to match up with. So for this, I'm just going to use some score tape to adhere this portion down. And again, I would really suggest that you use a very strong tape adhesive for this section, because you do not want this to come apart. This is really what's holding your entire album together, is this square right here. You can put some in the middle, but really with score tape you don't really need to. Okay, so now you just have to make sure that this score line matches up with the bottom, because if you've got this flipped wrong, it won't match up correctly. So make sure that your score line at the bottom, this flap, if you fold this up, that this is all the same length and that your score lines match. And then you'll know that you've lined this up correctly, because there is a right and a wrong to which side you can use. So look closely at that. Now we're going to take our adhesive backing off here of our score tape, just like so. Now to line this up, you're going to have to be fairly careful, because you want to make sure it's lined up nice and straight. If it's off a little bit, I mean, it's not going to really wreck your album, but just for ease of opening and closing and having those fold lines work well, you're going to want to really line it up. So I would suggest lining this edge up first. Sometimes on some papers they're not cut 100% straight or the same size, so it's good to line up the back first. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to line up the score lines to each other, and I'm going to line up this back, and I'm only going to push down on the one side so that I can really make sure that it is completely lined up before I put it down, and it is. So now I'm just going to really rub on here. You can use your bone folder to really push in. Now, if we flip it over, you can kind of see there was a little extra. Again, like I said, each paper isn't quite lined up, and we're just going to cut this off. You can cut this off with a pair of scissors. You can just see that that edge is sticking out there. So what I'm just going to do is go through and just cut it right with the scissors, so that is now nice and even and straight. So that's where we are at this point. And now we're going to get to closing the pockets. So for closing the pockets, you remember we made this little 1/4 of an inch extra, and then there was the 5/8 of an inch, and it doesn't matter that they're not the same. It just matters that they're there so that we can flip it in and make a pocket. So what we're going to do is we're going to close this section in, and because we've done this, now all we have to use is a little score tape to close this side. But this side will be open, so we're going to use a wet glue just to close this up. Okay, so let's close this up now. What I'm going to use is I'm going to use this really 1/8 of an inch. It's a thinner score tape, and I'm going to put it on my flap, right like this. So I'm just putting it on the flap there. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some score tape along the bottom. Now the reason why I'm doing this is because score tape is the best adhesive, and in order to close this pocket we really want to have something strong. But at the same point, when you put a tag in here, you don't want to hit this gummy adhesive. So this is where the wet glue comes in. I just put a little bit of adhesive, this wet glue, just a little bit above the line so that it will glue down, and then when we get our tags in there, it won't get stuck in the score tape. So now I can just close that up like that, and I'm just going to rub along the bottom just so that it seals this edge where that tape is. So now that I've done that pocket, now you can see this is closed and there is a pocket here. Now let's move down to the bottom one. We're going to do exactly the same thing. Because this edge is a little bit wider. This one was the 5/8 of an inch. I'm going to use the 1/4 inch score tape. And I am going to open this up, and again along this bottom I'm going to use the thinner score tape. Just like this. Take this edge off. I think I'll take this edge off first before I put the glue down this time. Now I'm going to put the wet adhesive just along that bottom. And you don't want to put a lot. Just a little bit goes a long way. Again, we're not really sealing the pocket, we're just creating that little section to be able to close so that it doesn't get stuck in the adhesive. So again, we're going to rub really good. All right, so now we've got this pocket here and we've got this pocket here. So now that this is all enclosed, you can kind of see how it is all coming together. So for this next section, I like the idea of creating some edges with some punches, so that's what we're going to do now. We're going to not use all the papers. You can, but then your album is going to get very, very thick. So what I've chosen to do is I'm actually going to cut off this section here. And again, you can leave it on for more flips and flaps. I think this, by the time it all folds together, is going to be a lot. So this one will be like this, and this edge, what we're going to do is we're going to take Martha Stewart scallop punch, this punch right here, and you can use any punch, and we are going to punch out an edge. Now this does two things. This gives us a little bit of decoration on this edge, but what it also does is when this all folds in, it's going to give a little bit of room off this edge here so that this paper isn't extending all the way to the end. And that just gives us a cleaner look and it folds nicer. So that's that section there. Now for this middle section, if you saw in my sample, I had this little fold out. So to create that, all we have to do is put a fold line in the middle. So we're going to grab our scoring board again, and for this what I'm going to just do is fold this like this and fold this back so that this will fit right on top of the scoring board. So this is this middle section, and all we're going to do is we're going to score right at the halfway point, and that is at 3. Because this is 6, so halfway would be 3. And if I unfold this, you can kind of see it coming together now. Just like that. So now we've got this, and we've got this section. Now to create the same upper as what we're going to do here, I've changed this slightly on the top, and what I want to do is I want to create a pocket to go across here. So there'd be a pocket here and a pocket here. So for that, what I want to do is I want to leave 2 inches here. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to put it in my trimmer. And what I want to do is I want to leave 2 inches from this score mark. Okay, so I want this score line, and then I want 2 inches from there. So I'm going to put this fold here, and then I'm going to put it at 2 inches, and then when I cut, the 4 inches is going to come off here, and I'm going to end up with 2 inches there. So as you can see, there's the pocket there. There's going to be another pocket. And just to jazz this pocket up a little bit, I am again going to punch with this border punch. And there we go. So now that pocket is going to be a little bit fancier, and then we've got the plain pocket, and again we're going to layer these with papers. And lastly, we have this one, which we are also going to do with the border punch, just to keep it consistent. So yeah, that's the sample. Now we're not going to glue this pocket down yet until we've put our pattern paper here, which is coming in the next part of this tutorial. But this is basically the whole album now created. I suggest that you fold all your score lines, so just give them a fold each way. just to ensure that the album folds well. That, and again, you can fold it both ways. And you can also, I would suggest actually using the bone folder just to make those creases nice and sharp. You can see the difference between that one that I did the bone folder on and the one that I just did with my hand. So we'll go back over this one, making sure it's nice and straight and sharp. There we have it. So yeah, now if we want to fold this all in, this piece here is going to go in like this, and this piece here will fold in like this. This will come up, this will shut, and then this will close down like this, and there you have the entire piece. So again, finished, it looks really good. Please stay tuned for my next part of the tutorial where we actually embellish the album. And again, this is available in a kit, so stay tuned for the information for that. And again, thanks for joining me. This is Kelly with Kellyscards.ca, and thanks for stopping by.